Hello, this is Michael, and this is the Mind Your Business Show.
So for the whole 14 years, you were completely like diasporic, like you had no home, you were just
I
traveling.
do have home. At some point, I based myself in Brussels because it's more central to
Okay,
Western Europe.
right.
Yeah, and I think small countries are more comfortable for ethnic minorities.
Okay. Was it a tough conversation with your parents at the point that, hey, you know what, I'm not coming back for
I
a
think
while? It's
my
very
parents
un-Asian, right?
my parents felt that I need to be happy as well,
Okay.
and I was doing very well. Right, I was traveling and having fun, but I was also doing very well financially, professionally. I had experiences that the local Singaporeans would not have
Yeah.
the
Right.
chance of doing.
Yeah.
And all this time, were you working for like big organizations, small and medium enterprises?
More big than small, big banks, governments, and tech companies. When the year 2000 or 1998, 99, when the .com companies
Yep.
came out, then they had funding, so they did hire my services.
Was it a very tough pivot for you from very manufacturing based and civil engineering based programming to something more like tech based? Was it a very big
Banks
pivot?
and
No, the underlying principles are mostly sciences, right?
Right.
Programming is basically binary logic based on binary mathematics. If you want to go down into designing hardware devices, it's based on that. So the entire software is based on that. I think software is very easy. Even now, I will tell you software is very easy. Why? Software is a binary machine.
Okay.
It's one and zeros. There's no other way.
Yep.
And the difficulty comes when you have users are not binary.
yeah.
Users are not binary, and they are fickle. And business definitely not binary,
Yeah.
and they change with time. And that's what makes business systems difficult.
Right.
Programming and computer, easy peasy. Don't listen to anybody who try to pull the wool over your eyes. It's very easy.
So during the Europe, like when did the Europe stint end for you?
Okay, it ended when I didn't quite end. There was a big break because when I was in London, there was a Malaysian bank who hired me
Okay.
and paid me a lot of money.
Okay.
So actually, I asked for a lot of money because I didn't want to work for a Malaysian bank, and I did not expect them to say yes.
Okay.
So they paid me a lot more than whatever I ever.
Was it a contractual thing or like a permanent position?
All contractual.
All
My
contract.
entire life up till now is contractual.
Why would you not want to work for the Malaysian bank? What was holding you back from?
Because I didn't know how legit is this bank, right? Those days without the internet, it's quite hard to suss out the real from the fake.
Yep.
So I was also thinking, are they real or not, right?
Yeah.
Are they still around?
They're still around, yeah.
Okay.
So I was wondering whether they are real or not. You can't really check facts easily those days. And since I was doing well in London, I was working for Barclays Bank and good money and all that. Why bother going to Malaysia? Then they bought me a business class ticket and flew me over quickly, interviewed me by the board, and flew me back. 2 days later, they say you're hired.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were you were asking for way out of market, like price wise.
Higher than European market. Yeah.
Wow. And so it was quite a surprise for a Malaysian bank to be willing to invest that kind of money at the point.
At that time, they needed that expertise because they were coming up with an e-bank and so on. And Bank Negara was asking for expertise for security, obviously. So they were desperate, I would say.
Right. So from then on, then you came back to Malaysia.
Yeah, I came back to Malaysia, and thereafter I came to Singapore. That's where I started those companies.
Ah.
And the field that you were specific in was cybersecurity for banking institutions.
Okay, the correct terminology should be information security.
Okay.
Now, if you think of information security, think of the entire life cycle of an information.
Okay.
Right? In the beginning, the information was born. For example, a decision in the board of directors to buy over a smaller bank, for example. Right? That's a piece of information that is very secret. So that is born. And when that piece of information will go through different forms. You go to digital form. First, it's just words in the board of directors. Then it will go into digital data. And that's where this so-called cybersecurity comes in. In fact, those days we don't use cyber also. We still call it information security. Then you will reach a stage where eventually the bank and is announced to the public. What secret is that? There's no secret after that, right?
Yeah. So that's when the information dies.
Yeah, so information security is a more holistic view of the entire life cycle of that information.
Okay.
Cybersecurity is if you are online. But really, if I want to steal information, I think of the easiest way,
Then what would that be?
I think of the easiest way. Why would I try to hack your system? These days, if you have a information system, most likely you'll be encrypted many times over. So if I want to crack it, I'll crack the human beings. Why I crack the system?
It's easier to do phishing or scamming the user instead of trying to go through the system.
I will crack that.
So how long were you in Malaysia then?
1 year.
Oh, that was a very short.
Yeah, 1 year. One very difficult year actually. There was a lot of things to establish because being a bank like that in their form those days, they didn't know what was needed.
Okay.
And I knew what was needed because I did it many times over in Europe.
Yep.
So it was very difficult. So they pay me a lot, but I actually work for the money.
Yeah. Do you miss Europe during that 1 year?
I don't miss the weather because I was in Northern Europe and the weather sucks. In fact, my first 2 weeks, every morning, I still rush to the window and see the weather. It's not bad today. So after 2 weeks, I say, of course it's not bad. It's the tropics, right? I stopped rushing to the window to look at the weather. That's what we all do in Europe. Every morning you go to the window and look at whether there's a sun or not.
This is something that we take for granted.
It's always the same.
Yeah, it's always the same weather.
Sunny, sometimes raining.
And in Europe, you eventually develop this perpetual optimism. And you will say, oh, it's not bad today. No, it's not. It's horrible.
So when the Malaysia stint ended, what was going on in your mind at the point?
Were you going to start your own consultancy?
My own consultancy in Singapore.
Right. Why not move back to Europe? What was the decision?
I wanted to explore more. That's why I remained to start.
And by that point, you were already maybe in your 40s.
Yeah.
So it was quite a huge risk for you to step into entrepreneurship.
My whole life is risk. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
You notice that Michael has always been doing contractual jobs, never going for a permanent.
My only permanent job is in the army because it was national service.
Right.
Has anyone ever told you, maybe your peers, I do understand that your parents have been so supportive so far. Has anyone ever told you, get something stable, permanent, don't do contract work?
I think they did not tell me. I think it's probably in their head. I can tell when I meet my classmates and all that, I can tell it's in their head.
Because it's super scary. If I was a Singaporean that went through the system, right?
Yeah.
And to hear my friend just
doing contract
living life on a... I don't know.
Exactly.
Right?
You just spoken my words.
Yeah.
They have this thinking. I can hear it in their head, but they're not telling me. Yeah. They do drop hints like, Michael, you have CPF. So they drop hints like that.
Right. And for that 14, till you were 40, you had no CPF, right?
Very little. There was little bits of periods where I had
self-contribution.
Yeah. I worked for a German company for a few months here.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So coming back to Singapore now to do entrepreneurship, right? That's your first ever step to running your own show, own business.
Yes and no, because as a freelance, we were running our own one-man company.
Yep.
Occasionally, we go up to 10 men, but that's a collaboration kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it drop back to one man.
Yeah.
So we have experience running companies and businesses already.
Yeah.
So now in Singapore, when I started my own company, then it is more elaborate because now we are looking at developing a brand name, business streams, marketing, sales, public relations. I appeared in the radio to talk about cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Then I have to attend a lot of networking evenings. I have to chase after invoices. I got to hire talents.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more extensive, but there's nothing out of the norm.
So when you decided that I'm going to explore entrepreneurship, right? Do you already have in mind what kind of a business you wanted to start, or was it okay, let me do entrepreneurship, then we see?
No, I always wanted to start my own technology consulting company, and in this case, it's an information security consulting company.
Right. So you were probably one of the first few people to do that in Singapore, right?
Yeah. At that time, it was tough because if you want to sell a product, it's better to sell a product that you don't have to explain to people what your product is.
Yep. Yeah, because nobody knew what information security entailed.
Say if I sell you Hainanese chicken rice, I don't have to explain to you. If I sell you some Italian Chinese fusion, I have to explain, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll probably have to charge you more money. At that time, information security was a highbrow thing away from just buying an Excel spreadsheet and install it.
Yep.
So I have to explain multiple times, and people are not listening. They are not interested. They have short attention span. It was very frustrating.
Yep.
And that is
so when the point when you decided that, okay, I'm going to start an entrepreneurship business. I'm in Singapore. Were you also at the back of your head, okay, I'm ready to also settle down and finally have a home and stay here for?
Yeah, there were plans to do that. Yeah.
Was it a tough decision because like someone who has lived life traveling and seeing the world and suddenly having to forego that for the time being?
Because I was very naive. At that time, I always think that one day I'll return to my home country and transfer all the skills I learned in Europe.
Yeah.
So that was the long-term game plan anyways.
Yeah, I always had that thought. Which now thinking back is bloody stupid.
So what was the biggest regret then? What was the regret about it?
The biggest regret is to think that you can come back and contribute to your country.
Right. I think that's what a lot of Singaporeans also feel, right? That's what a lot of people, where there's talent drain, like people from China when they move to US and then they are like, man, I'm not going back, or people from India.
But when you do go back, I think you also find it difficult to contribute, maybe bring in some of the ideas or some of the things that you've learned overseas. So is that one of the big challenges that you faced? Of course, customers are not being receptive. Maybe they don't buy into the idea of information security.
I was selling consulting, which is advisory.
Yeah.
Generally, bar Middle East and Japan, Asians don't like to pay for it. Advice should be free. If you want to sell me a box, I'm willing to pay the box if it's worthwhile for me. But if you are selling me words and advice, I'm not paying for it. I'll try to invite you for dinner and ask you questions and get it for free. Yeah.
So that was the main struggle at that point.
That was a main struggle. The other thing is that I find that Singapore was still very cliquey.
Okay.
In that it's who you know more than what you know.
And it must have been tough for you because you didn't have an existing network in Singapore.
Yeah, right? I didn't maintain a network. I didn't have a reservist network
Take us through the journey when you come back to Singapore, you're ready to start the business, right? What are the first few things that you know you need to have?
Establish your network all over again. And then I will have to start by asking my family members whether they can introduce people. And then I realized that if you are introduced, things happen. If you're not introduced, nothing happens.
Power of referral.
Referral. And that's how Singapore works till today. And unfortunately, we are a small market and small minds as well.
So the first mover advantage at that point actually wasn't really an advantage because it's too first mover.
I was too early in the game, and I didn't have deep pockets to last long.
Okay.
I didn't have IP to attract investors' money to go the long haul.
How was the feeling? Because like at that point, like you were a superstar, right? And then suddenly you're like feeling I'm a nobody. I need to rebuild everything. What was the like? How were you talking to yourself? What was the conversations you were having with yourself?
I think it was okay. I didn't think of myself as a superstar, though I think of myself as somebody that has the knowledge to proceed. And I was frustrated. I had to keep thinking of better ways to reach the market.
Okay. What was the breaking point for you? Like, how do you find that breakthrough for your business?
Actually, that time I was being too impatient. I wanted to grow very fast, and that didn't happen. But if I take the accounts for the years, then I was still making money.
Okay.
But I'm comparing with if I'm not having the company, if I do it myself, If I'm freelance in Europe, I earn more money. Right. So that is not a fair comparison.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a healthy comparison, maybe.
Yeah, it's not healthy. So I was being silly in that sense. And then,
do you have someone who was giving you like advice, or was it all like you and the mirror kind of thing?
It would be nice to have a mentor, but I didn't find anybody that is suitable.
Okay.
Because a lot of the businessmen at that time are mostly salesmen.
Yeah.
Not that sales is not important. Sales is important, but there are not many that are innovators and first movers. Is find something that is successful in Japan, try to get their distributorship here, sell and brand.
Yeah.
It was not something I wanted to do.
Okay. And so for you, when you started a business and doing information security, right? So the first few people that you were targeting were, of course, the banks. Right. What were the tough conversations you were having with them, because you had to explain to them everything from scratch, right?
Explanation is one hurdle. The second thing is that they will not buy from a small guy. They will buy from IBM, and they buy sometimes very simple stuff and paid a lot of money, and they rather do that.
So who were your first few clients that you were taking on?
Insurance companies, and some banks also.
Okay, the smaller banks.
Yeah.
Okay. How about government aid-wise? Like, do you look for like government aid for the business? Because it was something that was very brand new to Singapore, that you saw that there is potential for it.
Were there government grants back then? I'm not sure. No such thing.
But information security, it would be something the government would be interested in, right? Because
they have invested in their own startups.
Okay.
Like GovTech
and then
stuff like that.
I don't know whether GovTech is there or not at that time. So they were very biased towards their own.
Of course. I guess they will.
And anybody outside, they in fact try to kill.
Yeah, that would have been the biggest problem, right?
Yeah.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned in those couple of years when you first came back to Singapore to start your own business?
Don't be naive and think that you can come back and contribute to the country. You have to think of it from a business perspective, and nobody's going to care about you. Yeah. Don't believe what some people talk about. To say that we are going to make this country a tech center. Don't believe all those fancy words.
Okay.
Go down to the basics of what can I sell here, and what people are willing to buy, and how much they're willing to pay, and can you survive from those payments.
Yeah, it's the hard truths, right?
When you were saying about like you don't have deep pockets, right? Was there any point of time where you felt that, okay, shit, I might have to go back to freelancing because this is not cutting it up?
No, but then I didn't go until that extent.
Okay.
I knew that I cannot go on like this because I'm fighting against a big wave of opposition. Yeah.
Who are your biggest competitor at that point of time?
The big companies, like the big 5 consulting companies, the IBMs of the world.
How do you like find a unique selling point for yourself? What was the thing that you were focusing on as an entrepreneur?
To be smarter than them. So occasionally I will win something because I'm way smarter than them.
Okay.
Because big companies spend a lot of money on branding and marketing and so on. So they would not pay their consultants a lot of money, and then you don't get very good people.
Yep. That's how consulting firms work, right?
Yeah. So if you are able to impress the client, and the client said, look, I'm going to take a chance with Michael because otherwise the other side is more risky.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so occasionally that happens.
Right. So there were points where they were like, even though you're a small company, you seem less risky because you actually know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Right. And I always pay people that works for me a lot of money. I don't take a big cut.
Hi guys, hope you enjoyed this episode. More of Michael on next week on the Mind Your Business show.
I have friends who are partners in some of these consulting firms, and I often mock them as usual. And they were telling me that no, it's different from last time. Those days they could sell hot air for a lot of money.